Thank you for listening to the Josh Lacey podcast, Empathetic Warriors. If you like what you heard, or even if you didn't, leave us a review and hit that subscribe button to help us grow. You can also check us out on Instagram at josh.lacy, L-A-C-Y, .podcast. Thank you again. If it weren't for you, our listeners, we couldn't spread these Empathetic Warriors stories. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Josh Lacey podcast. Today's guest is someone I've known for about 2 years. And after this last Core Medical Military Appreciation event, we really connected, immediately hit it off. Already a man that I consider a brother. And without further ado, Anvil, what's going on, man?
Man, not too much, buddy. I'm excited to be here with you today. Feel the exact same way. When we got to meet in person in South Carolina, that was pretty awesome. And yeah, for sure, you're definitely family, bro.
Oh, dude, it means a lot to me. You don't find good people like that much anymore.
Yeah, so we just got to open our eyes a little bit.
We do have to let that vulnerability, down a little bit and open up.
And sometimes you gotta let the shields down just a little bit for the right people to come in your life, man.
100%. So, real quick, let's get a backstory, just down and dirty. Doesn't have to be anything crazy about you, like from your childhood, where you were born, raised, grew up, what that was like, and we'll kind of dive into everything.
Cool. Yeah. I am a military child. I'm a military brat. My dad was in the Air Force for almost 30 years. Born in England on the Air Force Base at Lake Heath Air Force Base. Lived all over the place. Lived my high school years in Germany. I guess that's right. I would say I grew up a little bit. Came out here to Arizona and retired at Luke Air Force Base. And I was out here for a little bit when I was a young man, selling retail at the mall. I was selling shoes and suits and, just making a little bit of money to go out and chase girls around. Got tired of that and wasn't good enough to play baseball. So I joined the Air Force and thought, my dad did this his whole life. I've seen every aspect of this. I've seen him deploy. I've seen him train. I know his friends. Everyone he deals with is an amazing person. I could probably grow up in this environment. So I joined the military and did about a decade myself before getting out. Fought some MMA after I got out of the service. Worked odd jobs. I worked in a prison out here in Florence, security at bars. Did commission art for people. I just did anything I possibly could, so I didn't have to work, day and night for someone else, creating their dreams or creating wealth for them. Not wealthy myself yet, but I'm still, plugging away and keeping that entrepreneurial spirit alive at 49. And now me and my wife, we have a beautiful family. We create jewelry that tells the story of freedom and triumph and helps veterans and helps children. And just get to use my God-given talents with art and creativity and storytelling to make things that uplift people that need something special in their life.
Wow, dude, there's that term jack of all trades, but you really embody that motto of jack of all trades. You've been there, done that, done it all, to and from. I mean, that's awesome.
I've done a lot, man. I feel like in this, I'll say relatively short period of time, 49 years, I feel old, but I do feel like I've lived, 3 or 4 different lifetimes. I've done different things for myself. I've always kind of pushed, whether it was because I was running from something and, that was changing what I was doing, or whether it was because I was really passionate about something. I've done a lot of things, and I think that has kind of kept me humble. Now later in life, it's kind of humbled me, and it's kept me well-rounded. And, it's not for everybody. The things that I've done are probably not what most people would pick to do, but they've made me smile. And I guess at the end of the day, when we're dead and gone, that's all we can really, say, I had a good life, or I loved what I did with my time, and I'm loving what I'm doing now.
Dude, that's awesome. So, growing up as an Air Force brat, how often did you have to move?
We moved about every 4 years,
Okay.
3 or 4 years. Just like everyone else, your dad or your mom in the service get stationed somewhere. They go do their time. They create whatever they're going to create or build whatever program they're going to build for the military, or take leadership courses, whatever that is. And then when they get to a certain level, you're needed somewhere else.
Yeah.
So my dad was pretty high speed. He really knew his stuff. He was a hard charger. He made E9. He made Chief Master Sergeant in 15 years, and spent another 15 as a chief. So he was asked to do a lot of stuff for the Air Force, stand-up programs, become an instructor, work with the Army on stuff. So we moved a lot. I had a really good role model, man.
So, I mean, my next question would be, who kind of drove you in your life? But I think you just kind of answered it, of what kind of role model and father figure you had, which is unfortunately nowadays rare to hear about and see, until you get to the few good men that are left in this world. But was he kind of the one that molded you and drove you to become the man, the hustler, the chief that you are today?
100%. He was. So my dad was an athlete in high school and then college.
Yeah.
He was physically, he was a stud. He was fast. He was athletic. He was, he could do anything. He could throw a football, throw a baseball, run track, wrestle, box. So I had a very strong masculine figure to look up to. And he not only took the time to be the mentor and the leader for his troops, his young troops in the military, but when he came home at the end of, a 12 or 15-hour shift or whatever it might be, or came back from a deployment, he always had time for me and my sister. And, that doesn't mean that, when dad comes home from a deployment, me and him are going to the swimming pool every day, or, he's going to go buy me a new toy or whatever. It meant when dad's home, all the things dad's doing, you're going. So if dad is going to go do a perimeter run on the base because he runs every day, 10-year-old Paul's going. If dad's going to go for the weekend and shoot a bow down at, the archery range, which is right next to the obstacle course, and he's going to do the obstacle course and shoot some bows, that's the kind of stuff I did all growing up. So all those things, the hard things that my dad made me do, that as a little kid, you're like, why am I doing this? I could be like riding bikes with my buddies, or I could be, doing whatever, playing Pokemon or whatever kids do. I was doing very meaningful things and learning skills. I remember when we were in Germany the first time, I was about 10 years old, and there was a Volksmarsch, a Luftmarsch that was set up for military units, and it was run. The German military and the French military run it. And it's in France. It's a 100-kilometer ruck march. And my dad and his friends were going to do it in their boots with their rucks. And my dad just looked at me and was like, hey, we're gonna go do this walk this weekend. I got you some new boots. I need you to break them in. And I had no idea what he was talking about. So I got this awesome brand new pair of like Nike hiking boots that I think are awesome. And I didn't break them in because I didn't want to slough them or get them dirty. And we went on this walk for 100 kilometers, and you have to finish it in 24 hours. And my feet are just bleeding like you wouldn't believe. I've got my whole footbed is just a blister, and we still finish. I mean, that's the kind of stuff I did with my dad. So, at the time, I didn't realize how important it was for a father or a father figure to really push a young man to do hard things, because it's only through getting through hard things that you know what your limits are or what they're not. And those hard things, when you keep stacking them up and doing them and doing them and doing them, all of a sudden the hard things are just something you look forward to. Like, I can't wait till the next time I go with my dad and he takes me up the side of a mountain and we go mountain climbing and, I get to rebel or whatever it is. Even though I'm scared to death as a little kid, those little steps that we hit and those things that my dad made me push through ultimately made me tougher and took away that uneasy feeling when you get to a new place. When you walk into a new room full of, people, who's going to break the ice first? Who's going to talk? Who's going to set the standard? And all growing up, I didn't have a choice of, what I was going to do. So in those hard situations as an adult, it just became way easier. I was always the guy that was, the first guy to go shake everyone's hand and find out what their story was, or try to build some team unity right off the bat so you don't stumble for the first, part of whatever you're going to do together as a new team. Try to get that team cohesion as quick as possible through action and through leadership.
Wow. That in itself is enough of a story to motivate any, young father to realize the importance that you mentioned of what it takes to be a man, but not only for yourself, but for the people that are after you, the next generation. So you said you hustled before, after high school, selling shoes and retail stuff. What was that by choice, or was that just because was that like in a actual retail shop, or were you just, slinging Goodwill clothes?
No, you know what? I was, so in high school, I was a kid that I knew everybody. I was an athlete. I was doing all these things with my father. I probably had some self-confidence issues. I always had to have like a new pair of Jordans, Levi 501s pressed, a brand new t-shirt that matched my shoes, a Detroit baseball hat that didn't have sweat rings in it. Like, it was always into fashion. And back then watching like MTV Raps and Headbangers Ball and, all that kind of stuff on VHS tape, because we're overseas, seeing what all these guys were wearing in videos and stuff, I thought that really appealed to me. So I was really into fashion and shoes. And when we got back from Germany to Arizona, there was a mall. My mom and dad wanted me to get a job. Hey, it's time for you to get a job. And I was actually, for a while, I was living on my own when I was 17, so I needed to get a job. I went down to the mall and I applied at a shoe store. I applied at Dillard's because I knew that I got discounts there if I worked there. So I started selling. I worked for Champs and Foot Locker and Athletic Express. And then I worked for Dillard's selling like suits and shoes, dress clothes. So I was really into fashion. I had aspirations of designing my own clothes and designing shoes. And when I was younger, I'd spend hours doodling in school instead of paying attention. I'd be drawing, how to make a Jordan better, or, what I would do if I was going to build my own like sweatsuit, like what I would put on it and like accents. I was always into that stuff. And, and that just for being artistic. I said earlier, like my gift, I think that my God-given gift is creativity. I've always been able to draw, and I've always drawn, whether that's statues or logos or t-shirt art. I just started doing jewelry within the last 7 years, and that's going very well for us. And it's just if something's in my head, there's got to be a way to create it. There's all these things in the world. We've got skyscrapers that are, 200 stories tall or taller. We've got, cars that go 280 miles an hour. We've got all these things. Well, someone had to create those. And my brain isn't, I'm not a book smart guy, but if I can see something in my head, I can engineer it or I can create it. And
That's awesome.
and that wasn't something that I learned in school. That was just something that's always been there, and it has been a blessing for me over the years.
That's amazing. So I guess my next question is, from living on your own at an early age to going into retail, how did you make the jump to Air Force, and when did that happen?
So when I was right out of high school, I thought without a doubt that I was going to be playing pro baseball somewhere. I thought I was going to be pitching somewhere. I threw really hard in high school. I hit extremely well. I could field. So I thought I was going to play baseball somewhere, some way. And I did play in Europe a little bit during high school. I played for a team called the Mannheim Amigos, which was a team that, Major League Scouts looked at, and we traveled in Europe, and it was a men's team. So there was an ad in the Stars and Stripes for Americans to go to this open tryout and try out for this baseball team. And my dad encouraged me, and in high school, I'm a senior in high school. My dad was like, hey, why don't we drive down there? It's only like an hour away. You can get on the mound. At least you can get some throws in, and, maybe they'll let you hit. You never know. Let's just go do it. Yeah. And I'm like, you know what? Screw it. Let's go. So me and my dad go out to this terrible looking baseball field, that's like in the middle of a soccer field. And they've got a mound out there. And, there's a bunch of guys there. I don't know how many, but there's a bunch of GIs, like young guys that probably played college ball or played high school ball. And now they're in the Army or now they're in the Air Force. And they read this ad and they go to trial out. So go to trial out, get on the mound, and that day everything was just clicking. I was throwing gas, I hit well, and I got disked up to play for this team. So the majority of this team was European players, and then there's 2 Americans on the team, me and another guy. And we played on the weekend, so I was traveling on like Thursdays and Fridays by the train over there to go to where I was gonna be playing ball, missing school, and then taking the train back and usually catching back up on Monday going back to school. So I was missing tons of school.
You were living every high schooler's dream.
Bro, it was so awesome. So I'm like 17. I'm playing ball with, 20 to 26-year-old men. After the games, we're going to the clubs, we're hanging out, and everybody thinks I'm older. So, I'm meeting older women. Like, it was crazy. And my dad was cool with it because it was an experience that I was never going to get anywhere else.
Yeah.
So he was fine with me missing all this school. Well, what my mom and dad didn't realize was I was missing a lot more school than that because I hated school. So I was skipping school all the time. Me and my buddies were skipping school. I was skipping school with girls. When you're in Europe, it's no big deal to get in a car and drive an hour or 2 away, and you're in France, or you drive, an hour or 2 away and you're, at some city that has castles and like tours of like the rivers. And so we were doing stuff like that, and I was racking up the unexcused absences, like big time. So my senior year, when everybody was getting ready to graduate and everyone's getting their gowns and all that stuff, my family was called in. My mom and dad and me were called into the office where the principal told my mom and dad that I wasn't going to be graduating. And they had no idea how much school I was missing and what my grades were like, because during football season, my grades were fine. During basketball, my grades were fine. It's just, there's a very small window where I just didn't go to school and didn't do any work, and I was failing everything, playing baseball, thinking I'm a cool guy, and didn't get to graduate. So I came back to Arizona and I had to do another semester of school out here in Arizona to get my diploma. And my parents were still in Europe, and that's when I was living kind of by myself. I lived first with my grandparents for a little while, and then I moved on to an old Air Force base out here that had been renovated for ASU students. And me and my buddy, we took a couple college classes so we could rent one of these cheap, base houses. And then it was just, living the bachelor life at 17. And I thought I was going to play ball, broke my arm, did some rehab, did a tryout with the Cubs out here in Arizona, and was cut immediately. So I knew I wasn't going to be playing baseball. I didn't want to work at the mall, and be one of these old people at the mall that I saw every day, guys that are like 40, 50 years old that have been working in the same store for 20 years, wearing the same suit every day. I didn't want to be that guy. So I talked to my dad, and I had to get some metal plates taken out of my arm from surgery that I had. And the same surgeon that put him in the Air Force took him out and gave me the green light. Did my AFABs, did all that stuff, and I joined the Air Force because I figured, I know all my dad's buddies. They're all badasses. They're all like my uncles and guys that I look up to. I want to be like that one day. And
Wow.
I never looked back. Once I joined the Air Force, that was it.
That says a lot about your upbringing, not only just the story that you've already shared, but the fact that you had these dreams and aspirations, and once they went away, you, immediately went into, I want to emulate my dad and,
Sure.
be like that man, growing up.
Growing up as young people, and however you want to classify young, there's certain people in our life that are meant to be there. And it's not always your parents. It should be a friend. It could be an uncle. It could be someone you met randomly, a teacher. But the people that care the most about you and are honest with you and hold you accountable, those people, if you got them in your life, I really believe you could do anything because they set you up for success rather than teach you that life is just a bunch of endless failures. There's failure in there for sure. I failed a million times. I fail every day. But it's how you look at those failures and try to deconstruct them and figure out, how can I make that a winning situation? How can I make this obstacle something that I can use to springboard to the next level or the next goal that I'm trying to get to? And that's where, I know we've talked about this. That's what my dad always said, always forward strong. There's no looking back. You're never going back to your wonder years, or, you're never going back to those years when you thought everything was great and you were a stud in college. Once those days happen, they're gone. What are you going to do today? What are you going to do tomorrow? Who are you now? Don't live in the past. Get your butt moving towards the future, because there's always more out there for you to bite off,
Yeah. So share that quote with me by your dad resonated so good, because like you just said, and what your dad, preached to you, you can't get the time that's already passed back. There's no way to reverse time it and relive those times, change the mistakes that you made. All you can do is learn and move forward strongly. That quote is just perfect in it all itself.
It's one of my favorites.
So you joined the military.
Yes, sir.
What are you going doing?
So at the time, I had a really lovely girlfriend that I thought I was going to spend eternity with. She was beautiful. We hit it off. A lot of similarities and common interests. And she was going to be dancing. She was a ballerina. She was going to be dancing in a Vegas show at the MGM called EFX. She got picked up for this show. So I wanted to be stationed at Nellis Air Force Base because she's going to be in Vegas. I want to be in Vegas. So I called my pop. I'm like, hey, I got a couple opportunities. I want to be stationed in Las Vegas, though, because that's where Angelica's going. And he's like, oh, buddy. He's like, don't base your decision on that. What do you want to do? You know, you've talked about being a cop, because I'm a cop. He goes, but we've also talked about like combat control and pararescue. He goes, there's so many things that you could do. Are you sure that you want to be a cop and have me get, pull some strings and get you stationed there? I'm like, yeah, 100%. I want to go to Vegas. I want to be a Vegas cop. And, I got my whole life ahead of me there. Cool. My dad being the guy he was, he did his thing. I ended up becoming a security forces guy, a cop in the Air Force, and went right to Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada where the Thunderbirds are. And, my girlfriend's dancing. I'm learning how to be a young cop, learning, how to do all the nuclear stuff, and I'm taking my tests and I'm doing all that stuff. And obviously I'm not with her anymore. So we broke up not too long after I got there. She was growing up. I was growing up. The Air Force lifestyle and the dancer lifestyle weren't really clicking. So ended up single in Vegas as a cop instead of, being something else maybe. And I'll tell you what, I made every day as a single young adult in Vegas count, buddy. Me and my friends, we had a good time. Probably too much of a good time.
I can only imagine the amount of fun you had being stationed in Vegas.
It was, you know what? I did a lot. Like in a lot of ways, everybody does. But at that time, all I wanted to do was find the next girl to, cozy up to and, deploy and do whatever you do on deployments. And Vegas was a good spot for that. There's always a lot of people out and about in the clubs and coming in for a weekend or coming in for 4 or 5 days for a wedding. So you're meeting people, and then a couple of days later you never even see them again. So for a young man that wasn't ready to settle down, that was a good scenario, but it didn't make me a good human. I wasn't being good to people. And that's one of the things, like when I was younger, we talked about you can't go backwards. I can't go back and tell all those girls that I fibbed to that I'm sorry, or, promise the world to that I'm sorry. I was not the best person to the ladies in my life back then. And that's something that has stuck with me for years, and I'm trying to rectify that with my daughters and with my wife. And you know what? Those are all life lessons that I don't regret. If I had the knowledge in me now, I would have done them differently and I would have treated those women better. But those mistakes that I made are gonna help me with my son and teaching him how to treat a woman. And I'm gonna teach my daughters how they need to demand respect. And they need to also give respect and be a good person. All of those things I need to learn to be a dad.
The story that you're telling me, there's a good quote that I heard by a really cool man that said, always forward strong. You can't take that time back. And so there's no point in dwelling on that, because you learn from it. And guess what? You already said it, man. You're going to teach your son how to treat women properly and respectfully. Your daughters, they know the standard that is expected of every man that they come to face with from here moving forward. And what better learn than for us as dads to bear that burden of the hard times?
I think, what, one of the biggest things that parents, especially now with all of the light speed navigation you can do on your phones or computers, parents, whether they're single or not, whether you're single mom or dad, or whether you have both parents in like a regular, traditional family, the biggest thing we need to do for our kids is be involved. Like know what they're doing.
Amen.
Know what they're going through. Like be empathetic to them. Teach them. Like teach them self-worth. Teach them the right things so they don't go down these rabbit holes of just disgusting things that are out there right now. We need to do a better job with our kids, or, nothing's going to get better, especially with technology. I mean, you can find anything out at the drop of a hat. Everything you put online is there forever, and kids don't think past right now. So I, as a dad, I'm trying to
gratification, the next like,
sure.
the next share, the next, viral post that they could make.
I'm trying as a dad to make sure that my kids understand real value rather than some instant gratification and a like, or, whatever. Because that's not even real. That's if you turn your phone off today and never looked at it again, and never looked at Instagram or Twitter or TikTok or Facebook, if you turned it off right now for about a week, you'd probably be freaking out because you didn't know what was going on. If you turned your TV off from here on out and you didn't watch the news, your mental well-being would probably go through the roof, because you would have to find things to occupy your time. Maybe you'd build that birdhouse that you always talk about doing, or maybe you'd, clean out the garage and find old pictures that you hadn't seen in years that make you want to write a book, or whatever it is. Once you turn all that crap off, and it's hard to do because I use it for business. I'm on my phone all day long. But whenever I have a break and all of that intelligence at my fingertips, my soul feels better. And I think we need to find a better mix of that as a society, especially with our kids.
100%. It's hard because of the way, like you said, the society, our jobs dictate us being on our phone, on social media. Half the time, that's how, businesses grow.
Sure.
And it just envelops everything about our lives, just ends up being about social media. And when you can escape, get away, I mean, even just taking a weekend, going dark and, escaping, going out camping, being with some quality time with the family. It's amazing what a reset can do for just like a 2-day, little blackout period.
Sure. When we were in South Carolina, I don't know if you were in the mix when I said all this. When I got up on stage and I talked about Mel, and I gave him I gave him a chain and pinned it. When I was talking to him about how listening to him and his words kind of recharge my batteries, there's certain people out there that I know, if I just go listen to them talk, pull up their podcast and just kind of listen to it while I'm drawing or something, I know that I'm going to feel better, because those kind of people don't lie. They're they're trying to make others better because they made mistakes in their life, and they don't want you to stumble into those same mistakes. And they talk about their faith, and they talk about love, and it's coming from this genuine place. So doing that and then unplugging your phone for a weekend or whatever, man, I feel like $1 billion after I do those things. After I get grounded. And when I came home from South Carolina, man, I was riding high for a week. We talked a lot after that. My cup was full. You know what I mean? Where half the time it feels like you're getting drained by society or the day-to-day grind of whatever it is. When you can unplug and fill that cup back up, do it every time, and do it without regret. Don't feel like you're being selfish. If your phone's blowing up all weekend and you need a weekend to recover and just have some quiet time for yourself to reflect or read or focus on something, don't ever feel like you're being selfish, because 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we didn't even have a phone like that to call someone all day long. At the end of your workday, that's the end of your workday. You know what I mean? You weren't getting blown up by 90 people on 6 platforms all day long. And oh my God, what did people do back then? Well, you survived. You lived life. And I think people were probably...
You lived your actual life.
I think people were probably even happier at that time. Now, that's not everybody. Some people
Yes.
are really happy with the fat fate, but it can very quickly take over everything, your mind and soul. It can definitely do that. And I think with children especially, because they don't have their foundation built strong enough yet to be deterred by all these things, likes and posts and TikTok campaigns, whatever the new trend is. They don't have a strong enough foundation to realize, okay, this is cool and it's fun to do this, but not at the expense of, if I don't get 20 likes in the next hour, I'm going to get depressed and start having like thoughts of hurting myself. And that's kind of where we're at.
It's funny you say that. I just saw a clip about with Gary V. He was at one of his many events, and a mom came up to him and asked, I don't want my daughter, who's very young, didn't specify the age, but said very young, to be on social media because I know what it can do to her. And, but in the world we live in, that's the only way you can get ahead, whether it's jobs, careers, you get yourself out there to self-promote and all that stuff. And he said something that was valuable beyond measures. He said, if you fill up pretty much her cup of self-worth and, let her know that she's worth this much, her value is set in not likes, but her qualities of a woman, the standards that she has and everything.
Yep.
She could go on Instagram or social media today or tomorrow and not have any worries in the world because as a parent, you've instilled the core foundation of what is important to her.
Yeah,
and
I think, I think I saw that same reel. I really like Gary V. I like his message.
Yeah. Yeah. He does. He's always just on point with everything.
He's just honest. You're going to get honesty. Whether you agree with it or not, you're going to get honesty.
Yeah. Yeah. So you do your gig in Vegas. Do you, you said you stayed in for about 10 years. So where else did you travel around to?
So I started off as a law enforcement cop on the main base at Nellis. I got into a little bit of an issue with a supervisor working down there. And I had because I was a good troop, reliable, knew my job, taught others, like team player, because I was always that guy, this new supervisor that I had, when me and him kind of got into it, my chief called me into his office and he was like, "Hey, look, what the hell's going on? Did you tell this guy that you was going to beat his ass?" "I sure did, chief." And what led up to that? And I kind of told the story. And long story short, I was given the task to paint our armory at Nellis Air Force Base. So we got heavy weapons, all of our 9mm, all of our M16s, all that stuff. And as an armorer, you were in charge of counting and blocking ammo, arming up the flight coming in, the cops that were coming in, taking the weapons from the cops, going home. And then you were assigned, this shift, this 3 days, I'm going to clean the 50 cals. Next shift, I'm going to do all the M60s. So there was always busy work at the armory. It was, you're wilding for 12 hours. You could have the TV on, you could have the radio on. I did push-ups all the time. And an escape position. I was on the road for a while, and I just kind of lucked out and got this escape position for a little while. I was studying at the time, so it was great. This new supervisor who did not outrank me. Yeah, he had a line number for his next stripe, but we were the same rank. Came in, and we get along really well now, but at the time there was some friction. It came in from, I think, Korea or Japan. I think it was Korea. And he wanted me to paint the armory. So he went out and got all the paint. He got rollers, he got tape, he got all the paper. And he's like, "Hey, I heard you're a really good artist. I want you to paint the armory. We need to do this. I'm going to task you with it." "Yeah, no problem." So I took my 3 days and, knocked out all my tasks at the armory, taped everything off the first day, edged it the second in, and painted the whole thing on the last day. And it was beautiful. This supervisor comes in to relieve me on my third day. He's like, wow, man, this looks amazing. He's like, it's really dark. And I didn't know what that means. He's like, it's really dark. And I'm like, well, it's the paint this guy gave me. So he's like, you know what? You did a great job. I'm going to have you do this again next shift. I'm going to get lighter colored paint. And I looked at him, and I thought he was kidding. I'm like, bro, I'm not doing this again. Now remember, we're the same rank. He got a line number, and because he's old, like he's been in the service longer than me, so he's gonna outrank me soon. But it's only because he's been in longer than me, not because of anything he's done, you know. So I kind of looked at him. I'm like, dude, I'm not painting this again. I'm like, you can do it. Or get Ketchum or one of the other guys to do it. I'm not doing this again. And he's like, well, you're gonna do what I tell you to do. He's like, I'm a staff sergeant. And he's like, he starts like pulling rank, and I'm like, bro, you're not a staff sergeant. You're a senior airman, and I'm not doing it. And then more words were said, and I basically told him, I'm like, dude, I'm gonna kick the shit out of you. And got back to my dorm, and that's when 10 minutes later, after going home, she calls me, and I go to talk to him. I tell him this story. We go over to the armory, and we look at it. He's like, damn, this was awesome. He's like, okay, I can either give you paperwork, or there's an opening at Silver Flag. Now, Silver Flag is one of 2 schoolhouses for Air Force cops that teach air-based ground defense. So patrolling, like now operations, kicking doors in, cleared rooms. We teach free ranger for anyone in the Air Force that's going to be going to ranger school. So 9 mil all the way to 81 millimeter mortar taught out there. So I had the opportunity to go to this dream job that I never thought I had a chance at getting. It was either go there and be an instructor, or I was going to get a letter of reprimand. I've never been in trouble. I'm like, dude, I'm going to go be an instructor. So I became a senior airman instructor at this, pretty awesome schoolhouse that we taught anywhere from 200 to 300 students a month how to fight in the desert. And it was out in the middle of nowhere in Nevada. I did that for quite a few years, deployed with the 50 cal team, and then went to Georgia to the 820th, which is a big group of cops that just deploy continuously and do like bear-based stuff and run missions. So I ended up being a squad leader and a flight leader in Georgia and deployed all over with the 820th. Worked with the Army and did a bunch of good stuff.
Wow.
Got hurt in Iraq and ended up getting out.
Okay. So had you not gotten hurt, would you have been a lifer like your dad?
I think so. I didn't make rank as fast as my dad, but I wasn't slow. So I was doing pretty well for my age and my time in service. I'd already been an instructor. I'm a team leader. I was writing lesson plans and writing operations orders and stuff for our unit. I was doing all the stuff and having a good time doing it. At this time, I'm a little bit older, so I'm in relationships a little bit longer now. I'm trying to be a good guy and treat girls a little better. And you know what? If I hadn't gotten hurt, would I have stayed in? I've asked myself that a million times, Josh. I think I would have. I was having a lot of really bad issues. I was bleeding like out of my lungs, and my larynx was like getting destroyed by like stomach acids and stuff. So my larynx was getting tore up. My lungs were all screwed up. And I don't know if that was strictly from like the oil fires and the burn pits, but something over there was screwing me up in my lungs and throat. To the point where every morning I had like a scab on my vocal cords where I was like coughing and spitting up blood every morning in the shower before going to arm up. And I couldn't talk on the radio anymore. So I was of no use to anybody because, even though I had an RTO with me that would relay whatever I said, he couldn't even hear me in the Humvees or when we were on patrol because I couldn't talk. So I got flown to Germany and then back to Florida. And I had the option. My captain told me, hey, look, I need you as a squad leader. You're one of my strongest dudes. All the guys trust you and they work for you. You're going to have to ride the pine for a while until you get all the medical stuff fixed because you can't talk. So I'm going to put you in supply and you just go through your medical stuff. And then when you're ready to come back to the unit, I'll put you back in your spot. And I was pissed. I was like, yeah, I'll get my shit fixed in the next 4 months. Like, it'll be fine. I don't want to miss a deployment. And I was kind of thanky about that. They offered me another slice to stay in. And at the time, I was like, man, like, you guys are offering me another, you're going to give me way to stay in, but you're not going to let me deploy with the team on the next deployment. And I didn't understand that the captain was looking out for me. He didn't want like long-term damage to my lungs and throat, which I definitely have. I sound like Grover half the time. But I just opted to get out when my enlistment was coming up. So I would have had to re-enlist and then ride the pine, or I could just get out. And, young and stupid, I'm going to get out. And I'm going to go do something I'm going to go be a cop in Vegas. I'm going to do something that is more fun than this anyway. Or what I thought was going to be more fun, Yeah. None of those hard jobs, I think they're fulfilling and they can be fun sometimes, but I don't think, serving the community is always the most fun. You're not looked at well by half the people out there, and you don't get paid worth the crap, and you have long, crappy hours and whatever. But I thought that was a better route. I got out, and for a while I was like bouncing in bars and stuff. And I had a buddy that was fighting MMA. He was a bouncer at one of the bars that I managed. And he's like, hey, Paul, a heavyweight bout up in Denver just got dropped off this fight card that I'm on this weekend. They need a heavyweight. Do you want to fight? And I'm like, well, I didn't understand the gravity of what he meant, because my friend Victor, at the time, he had already had like 5 pro fights. So he's already in the world of fighting. He's got a black belt under the Machado family. He's like the real deal, right? Taught combatives from the Army. And the most I had done at that point was I trained a little bit with the unit doing like combatives and things like that as became an instructor for a unit for that. But I was by no means a fighter. I'd wrestled with my dad, and my dad taught me how to box a little bit growing up. But I was not ready for a pro heavyweight fight, that's for sure. So he asked me if I wanted to do this thing, and I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I don't want to be here all weekend. Like, I didn't want to work at the bar anymore. I was getting bored. And I said, let's go. Tell him I'll take the fight. So we drive up to Denver that night. It might have been the next night. We drive up to Denver, and while we're driving, my buddy's like chugging wine. Like I'm driving, my cousin's driving, and my buddy who's fighting, he's like drinking wine by the bottle on the way up to this fight. So like he's half drunk, and I have no idea what to expect in this fight. Like I don't have fight gloves, I don't have fight shorts, I don't have any of that stuff, right? I had a cup because he told me I needed a cup. So getting any information from him was not happening because he was passed out. So we get up to Denver, get checked into the hotel.
And that was back before the ages of you can't just Amazon Prime your gear to you the next day.
No, dude, this
you
is
didn't have
like
it, you were out of luck.
This is in like 2008. So I mean, it was like I probably could have got something like overnighted to me, but I didn't even have that opportunity. So we get out there. I get a pair of shorts from, I want to say I got a pair of tap out shorts from the tap out crew up there. They had a pair of shorts and they gave them to me. The guy that put the fights together, he had all the gloves for the fighters anyway, so it wasn't a big deal. Me and Victor both taped each other for that fight. He taped me, I taped him. I cornered him, he cornered me. And that fight was a real eye-opener. I thought I was tough. I thought I was strong. I thought I was fast. I've been in a million fights already in my life. Like, I've been in scraps, you know, I've like in sports and bars, in, you know, military units. I've been in some scraps. I'm not scared of anybody, that's for sure. So I'm walking out and the promoter's like, hey, Paul, put this on. Walk out in this. I was big. I was 300 pounds, and you could almost see my abs, you know, at 300 pounds. So I had to cut to 264.
Wow.
Which was not great. Like, I was fully depleted. I think I cut maybe 20 something pounds in a couple days. Just sweating.
Wow.
And made weight, and I think it was also a catch weight. I think I could be a little bit over on short notice. I think it was like 264 was the limit, but I think we did like 270. I didn't have to cut everything, but I did have to cut. And then, you know, I get out there, I don't know what to expect, and I put this mask on that this promoter asked me to wear. It's like an executioner mask. So I walk out, I don't have a shirt on. I don't have a walkout shirt. I'm just like walking out like all Jackson can with a pair of new shorts and this executioner mask. I walked out and, bro, it was exhilarating. I can't describe how much energy is in like a fight venue when everybody is looking at you. When your fight music comes on and you walk out and everybody's looking at you and people are like clapping and giving you high fives. I never experienced that level of energy focused on me before. You know, as an instructor teaching in front of, you know, a couple hundred students, I love that. I love talking. As you probably know, I've been talking the whole time, but I just really enjoyed the walkout, and I didn't get nervous because I didn't know what to expect. Get in the cage, they close the cage, step to the middle, touch gloves, do all that stuff. And this kid I was fighting was named Jesse Fazorek. And I don't think he was that great of a fighter. I don't know how long his career lasted, but he was definitely more ready for the fight than me. He was a Gracie jiu-jitsu guy.
Oh, no.
Long, lighter than me, so probably a lot quicker. And he hit me he pumps a jab in my face right off the bat that, like, rocks me. And I'm like, I could taste blood in the back of my sinuses. And I'm like, okay, like, this is going to be tougher than what I figured. So after he hit me that first time.
This is real life.
Oh, dude. Instantly I was like, okay, no more bullshit. Like, I got to grab this kid. I got to smash him. Like, I'm not going to outbox this kid because I don't even know where that jab came from. Like you could have told me I got hit with a beer bottle from outside of the ring. And I've been like, oh yeah, that's probably what it was. I had no idea. I didn't feel it, just felt it. So I grabbed this kid and picked him up and run him across the cage and smash him into the far side of the cage. And the cage that's sitting upright goes like this, and it breaks. So the cage, like, is leaning over the judge's table now. And, like, I'm on this kid, and we're like a dolphin and a tuna that flopping around. And the cage is, like, almost on top of the judges who are looking right at him. So they stop the fight, they set the cage, and I'm like, now the adrenaline's kind of worn off, you know? Now I'm like, oh shit, like, I got to do this again. Like, the fight's not over. I got to go grab that kid again. So I tried to grab again, and I got choked. And There was like a light switch that went on. I didn't care that I lost. I didn't care what I looked like. I didn't care about anything. All I wanted to do was go home and get into a gym and get back in a cage again and beat the shit out of somebody. I accepted the loss with no regrets. I was actually smiling. I'm like, wow, that was dope. And I just wanted to do it again. So then I started training and got better at seeing those fast jabs and got better at throwing my own jabs and started knocking people out here and there and had some fun with it.
Awesome. So I was expecting it to come up naturally, but I got to ask, where did Anvil come from? Because that's how I got introduced to you, what I know of you.
Yeah.
But it's not actually your name. I was thinking maybe the
so
military,
my
now boxing. Yeah.
So I had a bunch of nicknames. Like when we were instructors, everybody had a nickname, a call sign on the radio. I was Fat Bastard because I was the heaviest guy out there. Not that I was that fat, I was pretty strong, but I was Fat Bastard. That first fight, I didn't have a fight name. So the promoter just said whatever he wanted. He said, Paul the Junkman O'Keefe. And I didn't even know what that was. I don't know what it came from. It just was kind of funny. So after that fight, when I started training, I was working at a foundry, a fabrication shop, and we were making like wrought iron window structures and doors and stuff for multi-million-dollar homes. And there was one big anvil in the shop that guys use for, beating metal up. And if someone needed the anvil, they would just yell, "Hey, I need the anvil." And no one else could lift it except me, and my buddy Brian could too. But I would always go and pick it up because I wanted something to do, pick it up and waddle it over to their station and put it down. So that the guys at work started calling me the anvil. And the other guy that I worked with, his name was Brian. He was also fighting at the time, and he was the hammer. So at this place we worked, the hammer and the anvil were always hanging out together. It was kind of like we just did it as a joke because it was funny from where we worked. But it just kind of stuck, big heavy thing that you can't beat up and too dumb to quit. So
that's perfect. So how long did your fighting career last? How many fights did you get in under your belt?
So it was about 7.5 years. I think I had 8 pro fights and like 500 fighter.
Wow.
Like I wasn't, like if I didn't get choked out, I knocked someone out. And that's just how it was. Like I wasn't proficient enough at jiu-jitsu to stop an onslaught of like good chokes or something. I was good enough to get up a couple times if I got taken down, but I wasn't, I wasn't on par with some of these guys on the ground. But if I hit them, I could knock their skeleton out of their skin. So whatever. I wanted to smack you and not let you put your freaking arm around my throat.
Hey, that's sometimes that's the best method of fighting is just pound them till they're dead and don't let them touch you.
I'm old, so that that's when I was fighting. There were some very skilled fighters back in the day, but there was also a lot of brawlers, and they would even like come out like he's a street fighter from San Luis Obispo. Like they'd say they were a street fighter. So like you're fighting a guy that like he's a kid with 100 street fights to his name. You're like, okay, this guy's just gonna be tough. Like he's not gonna have a real skill set. He's just gonna come out and throw a big right hand. That's what a lot of us were.
So you finished your fighting career. At what point did you decide to make a jump over to designing the jewelry? Because that's a big part of your life now.
Sure. So at some point when I realized I'm probably not gonna ever make enough money to sustain a lifestyle with this, and I'm getting old, like everything's starting to hurt. Me and my buddy had a gym. I have a friend that's a a world strongman competitor. He taught all the strongman guys stuff. I had an MMA team. Then we taught like speed and strength for high school kids going to college to play sports. So we had our own gym, which was helping pay bills and stuff too. When I realized that I wasn't going to be able to fight forever, and the gym certainly wasn't going to pay for everything, I needed to find a job. And I kept seeing all of these fighters, these Arizona fighters that I looked up to. They always had this one tag in all their posts, and it was Night Rider. I didn't know what Night Rider was, so I looked it up, and Night Rider was a jewelry company, or is a jewelry company that's out here in Arizona, and they have a store in Scottsdale Mall, and they take really cool, like biker walker jewelry. And I just went in because I wanted to look at it. I wanted to, I wasn't necessarily even looking for a job there. I just thought it was cool, and it was right down the road, so I wanted to go check out what all these guys were talking about. So I went into this jewelry store and loved it. I'm like, yeah, this stuff is art. Like, everything in here is a piece of art. This is beautiful. I applied for a job just part-time because I wanted to learn more about it. One manager wanted to hire me real bad. The other one was like, man, I don't want to hire that big, dopey guy. Like, he's not going to sell anything here in Scottsdale. Like, he's going to scare everyone out of the store. Luckily, I got the job. I learned the ropes. I was in the store in Scottsdale for just a little while, and then I moved to the road shows that they did, all the bike rallies. And I traveled and ran the road show team of salesmen and just learned all about how jewelry is created, like what's comfortable, what's not comfortable, what you can do with certain surfaces, like, can you texture something? Does everything have to be smooth and shiny? I learned all these things, and after working there for about 5 years, I realized that even though I was talented and had done a couple custom pieces with that company for customers, I was never going to be a designer in that company because the owner designed everything. And it sucked to realize that, but I kind of choked down my ego. I'm like, you know what? I shouldn't even be that. He's doing what he created. He's doing what he loves. Now it's my turn. So I put my 90 days notice in with them. I gave them 3 months and started a nonprofit called the Mother of All Rucks Foundation. And at the end of 90 days, that nonprofit was set. And me and some of my friends ruck marched from San Diego to Washington, D.C. to raise money for a wounded veteran.
Wow.
We did, as a team, we did 22 miles a day in boots with a small 3-day pack on. And we had a support vehicle that looked like a RV that was painted. We rolled it and painted it to look like an A10. And every day we'd paint a bomb on the side that had a 22 with the line in it. And obviously at that time we were doing it for, I don't even like to say it anymore. We were trying to raise money for veterans in crisis. We're trying to bring that number of veterans that decide to end their existence every day. We were trying to bring that number down. And what I really wish I would have focused on more than that was uplifting the veteran community. I have a really good friend, and you know him. Kind of completely changed my thoughts on how I should, as a veteran, help other veterans that are struggling and maybe thinking about committing suicide. And it's a much different way to think about it than the mainstream, because you see all these nonprofits out there raising money and talking about suicide and talking about, 17 to 24 a day, and really when you're doing that, and I can't say this for everybody, but when my buddy Rocco told me that, it hit home. If you're talking about that every day and your focus is on that, and you're talking about alcoholism and all the bad decisions that vets make and all these things, and that's what you're focused on because you care about it. You want to raise money to help these guys. there's a flip side to that. You're talking about it every day. And someone that's struggling,
You're putting it into their head. You're planting that
they're
seed.
hearing that. And exactly. And you don't know, you may be trying to spin it as positively as possible, but for someone that's drinking or on drugs and having, they just had their kids taken away from them, they just got out of jail, and they have nothing to live for, when they hear that all the time and they see the veteran on TV that's drinking in the bar and smashing up, someone's car, getting in a domestic dispute. We are more than that. Veterans are much more than that. And the people that are in those positions don't need these whispers all day of, hey, everybody's doing it. 22 people do it a day. Even the strongest people do it. Like guys that were in Delta do it. Guys that are in, the SEALs do it. Rangers do it. Like, you're kind of hearing this all the time. And for some people, it might sway them to feel like it's okay. And I don't know if I explained that correctly or if that made sense, but I try not to talk about that anymore. But that's what my whole ruck was for. I spent 6 months walking across America talking about suicide and paying for a service dog, to paying for a guy's wedding and remodeling homes and doing all these things we were doing with the money. And I wish I would have done it in a more positive way. And, it's just one of those things. You can't change it now. But if I were going to do that, something like that again, I would not focus on the dark side. I'd focus on the light and the prosperity that we could all achieve if we just believe in ourselves and work every day to be better. And your better every day is different than my better every day. Someone that's struggling, their better might be getting up and taking a shower, brushing their teeth or making their bed or going out and looking for a job, or whatever your better is as an individual, you've got to improve on it every day. And slowly you come out of that dark place that is trying to pull you in, and you just leave it in the rearview mirror. Because then every day you have purpose.
That's the best advice you can give.
Sure.
Is not talking about it in a sense of like a taboo, but in the same sense it is, because it's talked about, it's subconsciously ingrained in people's minds. It's there. Yeah. Whereas if you just talk about the positives, hey, as veterans, we have opportunities to be flourishing, successful. We have all the resources. We were trained from day one in boot camp to always push forward, always forward strong in a sense. Well, just because you got out doesn't mean that has to stop.
Right.
You might not have the same, unit cohesiveness behind you, but that's what you got to build. And it's up to us to be independent and then grow that community around us.
Veterans have it's almost like we went to a trade school, and we did. We went to boot camp, and you go and learn your job, and then you go do your job. With that experience, veterans, they sell themselves short. They don't realize how valuable you can be in the community with just the discipline that you've learned from the military. Even if you don't get out and do what you were doing in the service in the civilian world, you still have more discipline than a young man or woman that's never been in a hard situation or never worked on a team and been broken down to the point where everybody relies on everybody, the guy to the left and right of you. We have such a leg up as veterans in the civilian world if we just realize our value. And especially for young troops that get out, that might have only did 4 years. Those 4 years are, that's the more structures than they're going to get working somewhere else for 15 years in a lot of cases. So, you could take a all-veteran team and even down to people that in your unit may not have been the best. You could take an all-veteran team and give them a tasking and give a civilian team the same tasking. And I would put my money on the veteran team always, because they're going to gel faster. They're going to establish roles. Everyone's going to do their role. When someone's done with their role, they're going to look to see who else they can help. And you don't see that a lot anymore. And you may not see it a lot in the, some of the military lifestyle anymore either. I don't know, but so some of it's getting a little bit soft, but I'm not there, so I don't know for a fact, but it's certainly
That's
changing.
a whole nother issue that we don't have enough hours in a day to tackle that issue.
Man, I tell you what, the military is there for safety and security of this nation. The military is a fighting force that has to be that. And if our military is anything other than that, we do not have safety and security.
And unfortunately, I think we're at a very pivotal moment for our leaders and our commanders up at the higher echelon of the military, to where it's time to open our eyes, because the world's not getting better anytime soon. And America is number one. It always has been. And we got to keep our troops sharp enough to remain, number one at all times in the blink of an eye.
You got to earn it. You can't just ride your own coattails from here until eternity. Look at Rome, look at Egypt, look at any of these civilizations. They're gone. And they're gone because they got corrupt, they got greedy, they started doing things immorally. They were not doing things correctly. So, I tell my buddies all the time, if you don't like what's going on around you, you don't like what you see, be the change. Hold people accountable. Get out and vote. Vote with who you think is going to do the best thing for what you believe in. And you know what? That may be a thing in the past. All that stuff may be rigged. It may be whatever. I don't know, and I'll probably never know, and neither will you or anyone. But we can be better for our kids. We can be better for our friends and family.
Yeah.
We can make the lives of people around us better, whether we know them or not, on a day-to-day basis. We can be the positive change that the world needs, but it starts with you. It doesn't start with someone else. It starts with yourself.
Yeah. 100% factual right there. All you can do is better yourself, and that ripple effect takes a place. People see that, oh man, that dude's changing. Something's different about that dude. He's not just a dude anymore. He's the man that I aspire to be.
Yeah.
What did you do? And then you get to share that story, that, change that happened in you.
Yeah.
And I mean, perfect example, like you were saying earlier, the positive effects of the veteran community. We have the skill sets. We have the knowledge to better ourselves naturally. That's what we were bred to do from day one. So why not better yourself and just see where that ripple effect takes you?
100%. 100%. Yeah.
So you did your ruck across America.
That's right.
And after that, is that when you decided you were going to go back and make this badass jewelry that you have?
So I started talking about something else. So I guess I got home from that ruck march, and it was almost like I got back from a deployment. I got a little bit depressed. Every day we were getting up, cracking on, putting our boots on, going and getting it. In the evenings we do, podcasts, news spots, radio spots. We were doing home run derbies, fun runs. We were doing all these things, and it was busy, and it had meaning, and it was around people that I loved. And then I get home, and it was just quiet. I didn't have, no one's calling me to do an interview. No one's calling to see where we're at on the route. No one wants to sponsor us. Money started being harder and harder to come by. Because I didn't have a job. I was so broke, and I was bored and depressed. And I hit up a friend of mine who started doing some silver jewelry. And I said, hey, Jimmy, I saw online that you're doing some jewelry. I'd really love to show you some stuff that I've designed that I want to do. I said, I can't do it with the other guys because they got stuff going on, but I really want to design these pieces to help vets. He's like, yeah, let's meet up for lunch and show me what you got. And this is a guy that's been doing jewelry, I want to say Jimmy he's 7. He's been doing jewelry a long time. And he's friends with Alice Cooper and all the rock stars, like plays golf with Alice Cooper every day. So if anybody is going to be able to help me make some badass, skull jewelry, it's this guy, right? So I met him for lunch and I showed him all my drawings. And he kind of looked at me like, dude, are you serious? Like, you drew all this? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, I had no idea. He's like, I had no idea that you could design. I'm like, well, I never really did it for Knight Rider, but I really want to. And he's like, look, man, these are awesome. Let's do it. So we partnered up and we started making some of my designs, and slowly it started selling, and kept building and building. And we're not partners anymore. He's doing high-end jewelry now with like diamonds and wedding sets and stuff. But we had about 4 years where we were just kicking butt, going all these bike rallies and car auctions and stuff, and developed this line. And when we decided to split, I switched the name over to Anvil CACHÉ, and now it's just me and my wife and my buddy Chris, and we're having a good time. We're trying to scale up as we speak. We're trying to really make it work at this point.
That's awesome. So, I mean, again, from that vulnerability aspect, you went and said, hey, I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to go out and, just ask to get some help, start out in this business. And from what I can tell, it's kicked off. You brought your jewelry to the event in South Carolina, the Core Med event. And it's like a kid in a candy shop every time I get to lay eyes on it, especially when I get to hold one of the pieces. I mean, the intricacy and the fine detail that goes into a piece. It's not just your typical, biker ring. It's so much more. Like you said it earlier, there's a story in the entire piece, and there's different stories at different angles of what you look at, and the fine detail that goes into every piece is just unbelievable.
Thanks,
What I thought was cool about when I first saw your jewelry, it's the front and the back.
Yeah.
Almost every piece has something either on the inside of a ring or the back of a pendant, and it almost finishes a story because you get one side of this amazing picture, and it's similar to your logo up behind you. That's on one of the pendants, the dog tag pendants, and on the back of it has a script on it that you see it and you're like, man, I can tell what this piece really means. You flip it over and read that piece, and it's just it's moving.
I got your six.
It's hard to believe that a piece of metal can move you like that.
I read that verse when I was journaling a little bit on that Luck March. I wrote that verse on the back of that piece on that Luck March long ago, and just had it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to put this on a dog tag. And that's one of our #1 selling pieces. Usually if I'm in a crowd if I'm at a bike route and I got, a bunch of people at the glass looking at jewelry, if there's a military crowd, I'll pull that one out and read it. And as soon as I read it, I'll sell like 2 or 3 of them. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. Do you have that little quote on hand that you can read off?
I mean, I got it in my brain. I can just say it.
That's better right there. Go ahead.
So I don't have it in front of me, but I'll just say it. It's called "The Darkness of Battles Past." And I may stumble on it a little bit, but I'll get through it. The darkness of battles past must never be allowed to extinguish a warrior's light. We have a duty to our kind and our country to stand ready, act with purpose, to never let another fall to the warring side once their service is complete. I'm your brother, your sister, your family, for all eternity. I've got your 6. I think I said it right.
Man, every time I hear you say that, nothing but chills.
It's, I was struggling, you know, like, you know, your story is when you spoke at that event and I came up and talked to you afterwards. I came up and talked to you afterwards because I could feel your energy on stage. I could feel you going through your past in your brain when you were telling us all and you were being vulnerable and you're talking all these, you know, the people that were there were just top notch, tip of the spear operators. And you tell your story and we're all sitting and listening to it. And all of us could find something in the story that, you know, touched us. Like, I wasn't always the best in between.
That means a lot, man.
Yeah, in between deployments, I wasn't always at my peak. I wasn't always the best for my ex-wives. You know, I've been married a couple times. Everybody's got that story, right? So when you see someone on stage or speaking, and they're absolutely being honest and being vulnerable and telling you their hardships and telling you how they overcame them, that is powerful because we've all gone through that, right? So when I talked to you right afterwards, man, it was really refreshing to get to meet someone that is kind of starting their journey in this world. And I know you've been doing stuff for a while, but you're just kind of getting out there and starting to really believe in yourself and take the chances. And that's a powerful thing. And that's why I came over and encouraged you, hey man, whatever you're doing, you keep fucking doing it. Because it doesn't matter if you were a Delta Ranger operator or if you were a fuels guy, all of us have a story. Even if you weren't in the military, we have a story.
Yeah.
And the only way to get better is to hear those stories and know that not everybody is perfect. Nobody's perfect. And that's another thing that I stress a lot with my kids. They don't have to be perfect at school. They don't have to be perfect, you know, with everything they do. They're gonna make mistakes, and from those mistakes, they're gonna get stronger. And I wish more people understood the importance of loving themselves and allowing themselves to make mistakes and growing from them rather than going down this tunnel of trying to impress everybody all the time. Because a lot of times it's to your detriment.
Yeah.
You're trying to be someone you're not. You're trying to act a certain way. You're trying to be happy all the time and keep up with the Joneses. And it's just going to destroy you.
It does. I mean, faster than you can keep track of and what you know,
Yeah, man.
How to do. It's one of those. It's a double-edged sword, really, because you think that's the level you want to be at, and you get there, but everybody's progressing, everybody's moving forward, so you never really get there until you become at peace with yourself.
Sure.
And then you realize, I'm good enough for me. I'm good enough, for the life that I've created with my family.
Right.
And then you push yourself, beyond that stuff. And, when you came up to me afterwards, it was motivating. And it's funny when you say you can feel my, the rawness and, the truth, the vulnerability and everything. But when you spoke to me, it was almost like we had never met in person before. And I felt like I could carry on a conversation with you. Like I was friends for years prior. It was crazy.
And you know what? I think more people could have that experience if they just got to the point where they were, you don't have to love yourself. Be comfortable with who you are. Be comfortable with your mistakes. Be comfortable with your flaws. Be comfortable with your quirks and the things that people feel are weird about you. It's okay. We're on this earth for maybe 100 years, right? We're not all going to be the same. We're all going to think someone's a weirdo. We're all going to think, that way is not the way I would do it. But that's okay, because we're only here for us. We're only here for the experience that we can create, and hopefully that trickles down to the people we love. But if more people were just comfortable with themselves and quit lying to themselves and really got after it and tried to make themselves better, this world would be so much better. People are just
It really would.
Stage.
I mean, yeah, we're our own worst enemies, and we put roadblocks in our own path more often than we know.
Yeah. You know, when I take a picture at the house, I'm going to post it on social media or something. I'll make sure the mirror's clean or what, like the house is clean behind me. But I'm not like doctoring shit up and like trying to get the right filter. Like people are they spend so much time trying to fool people when we all know that nobody's perfect. So if all you post is just a perfect plate of food and perfect kids, perfect house, that person over there is probably super unhappy. And I didn't mean to cut you off, sorry, Josh.
So, no, you're good. The feed froze real quick, so I want to make sure I wasn't cutting you off. I mean, you've really lived in a lavish and very fun-filled life. Where with all the changes that you've made in your life, progressing, working through your hard times, where do you see yourself going with those changes you've made, kind of moving forward? I mean, you said that the business is going good, but what's in your future?
So as far as like goals that I have, short-term goals, I want to make sure that I can continue using my art to express myself and make money for my family and hopefully help others. But down the road, my long-term goal at this point is to try to strengthen my faith in God for not only myself, but for my family, to try to get more public speaking engagements where I can maybe impact some younger folks that are struggling or need some motivation or a real, rock that they can grab onto and pull themselves out of the rushing waters. I want to help people, and I want to watch my kids grow up into wonderful citizens that not only take care of each other, but take care of other kids and other people. So if I can figure out a way to keep my business going and become the man that my dad was for me, to my family, when I'm dead and gone, I'll be happy. I can't make up for all the dumb shit I did when I was younger.
Man, I'll tell you what.
But I can certainly do it for my kids.
I'll tell you what. The life that you are living right now, and the motto and just manliness that you're embodying on a daily basis, your kids have an amazing future in front of them. Amazing man to look up to.
Thanks, brother.
And
Thank you.
In this society, you're a rare breed and a man among men.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. We have some
I
some good role models in our clique, man.
We do. That's 100%.
I'm gonna keep those guys around as long as I can, because you know what? There's always someone smarter. There's always someone that's been around the block a little bit more that can help you. And I look for those people. I want to be around people that make me uncomfortable because they're better than me, because they're smarter than me, because they've accomplished more, because those are the only people that are going to keep me sharp. And I don't have my dad around anymore. He's passed away. So I have to find guys like you and, like Mel and like Sid and Jason and all the guys, Cody, all the guys from Core and like Rocco and my buddy Chris. I got to have these strong guys around me that can reel me in when I'm in that dark space or when I need advice. I got to have that, because it's the only way I can get better. It's by being around better people.
Yeah, there's that verbiage that says if you're the smartest man in the room, you're in the wrong room.
100%.
And I mean, you hit the nail on the head with when you got a good group of guys around you that are not only pushing themselves but pushing others around them. You don't let go. I mean, I don't care how hard that grip has to tighten down. You hold on for dear life, and it's a good clique to be in.
Yes, sir. I mean, how many times have me and you talked since we met? We've talked every few days.
Every few days we're either on a text, voice call, voicemail, something.
And you know what? When you have a core group of friends that you can rely on, that are good role models and are pushing those little check-ins with friends that might happen, once a week or a couple times a week or once a month. They are enough to get you to where you need to be, because those conversations are strong enough to get you to that next hump. And I'm so blessed to have the friends that I have. I'm a very lucky man.
Well, we're equally as blessed to have you in our life. I guess to wrap this up, I'm going to ask you the question that I ask everybody.
Mm-hmm.
What is the one piece of advice that you would give to our listeners that has kind of changed your life, or that could help change their lives, moving forward?
You know what? What jumped out at me right away, a little over a year ago now, maybe a year and a half ago, me and my wife had a retail store. The jewelry wasn't, COVID hit, the bike shows kind of stopped for a while, and we weren't selling as much jewelry as we normally would, but we still had bills. So we opened a retail shop. The retail shop, we were selling vintage clothing, like concert shirts from like the 70s and 80s, like real stuff from back in the day, not reprints, and like Jordans and Kobe's and hype stuff. And we were doing really well with it. They kept raising our rent, and we couldn't maintain the store anymore. The jewelry was falling off. We had to close the store. I had eviction notices on my door every other day. They were going to repo my car. Like, life was not good. My wife was pregnant, and I was scared. I was scared shitless. I didn't know how I was going to feed all these little beautiful mouths in my house and take care of my wife. And I was scared. And I let that darkness creep in. And I was in a very, very bad place. And my wife had Rocco call me. And he's like, "Hey, Anvil, what's going on, man?" "Oh, nothing, man. I'm good. I'm just trying to, get this business going." And he's like, "You know what? Bullshit, dude. Don't bullshit me. I'm your bro. What the hell is going on with you?" And I kind of broke down because I felt weak. And I said, "You know what?" I said, "I'm sure my wife called you." I said, "I'm not doing real well. We're losing our business. I'm going to get evicted. I don't know how I'm going to take care of my kids. I'm ready to call it quits, man." And he's like, "Nah, bullshit, dude." He's like, "Not a chance." He's like, I want you to get in this men's group with me, and I want you to apply yourself and just give me a little bit of time, and let's get you squared away. I mean, I had nothing else to do, so I'm like, "All right, cool, whatever," like kind of half-hearted. He hooked me up with Core. They did my blood work. I got my hormones dialed in, which was a big problem. My test was at like 80, and I had testicular cancer in 2009.
Wow.
So my hormones were all out of whack anyway, from cancer treatment and radiation and losing the testicle. My hormones were just jacked up. And I was just always sad and depressed and tired. So I got my blood squared away, and I started doing the work. I started addressing why I was unhappy with myself. Why do I sit around all day and not work out anymore? Why am I not creating 7 hours a day instead of 2? Why am I not, taking on more responsibility, going to more shows? Like, why am I letting myself down? And I started holding myself accountable through this men's group. I started writing. I started getting up at 4:30, working out, doing ice baths. I wrote a book. I wrote an autobiography, self-help book. I started doing all these things that Rocco was pushing me to do. And all of a sudden, I was chipping away. I was chipping away at those little obstacles. And then I started talking to God more. I started talking to my dad. And I realized that whatever you put into your life, you're going to get back. It may not be on your terms. It may not be as fast as you want it. But if you are living with some kind of faith and love, and you are purposefully trying to better yourself and the people around you, people will take note and things will happen. So I guess my advice for anyone out there, if you don't have a mentor and you don't have someone that'll be brutally honest with you and call you out on your shit, then you don't have a good friend. You need to seek out friends that'll be honest with you. Not in a mean way, not to hurt your feelings. They will be honest with you because they're going to tell you things that are hard to hear that you are hiding from. And when you can start chipping away at something little every day, making yourself better, and you start surrounding yourself with the right circle, your life will do a complete it'll do a 180. If you're in the shit, it'll do a 180 and you'll be out of the shit. But you gotta get rid of you gotta get rid of the baggage, whether that's trauma from your life, from with military people, maybe it's trauma from your combat service, maybe it's trauma from when you were a kid or when you had a car wreck, or you nearly died in the river one year. Whatever your traumas are, you have to address them. You have to get the negative people out of your picture. If people are dragging you down and they don't believe in you and they're not uplifting you and supporting you, they are not your people. And you may not have that many people. I've got 20 dudes probably that I know I could call anytime that would do anything for me. I've got 5 dudes that I could call at any time and would be on a trip wherever I ask them to help me out of a jam. Those are my people. I don't need anyone outside of that. I don't need all the likes on social media. I don't need an entourage of people following me around. I need to be true to myself, work on myself first, and be happy with myself first before I can ever expect to make someone else happy. And when you do that, you take care of yourself first, everything falls into place. So my coming back, being long-winded and coming back to your question,
I love it.
Find out how to freaking love yourself, how to love your flaws and use your flaws to your advantage, and how to get stronger in all aspects of life. Because when you can do that and you dedicate your time to that, you can be an asset to everyone around.
Dude, that was deep. There's going to be a lot of lives touched by that last little segment that you gave us right there, because just the rawness is going to move a lot of people. But thank you very much, Anvil.
Thank you, brother.
I guess Paul, for everybody else that might know
Yes,
you.
sir.
I know you is Anvil.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, man, for being on here. It's been a
Josh,
pleasure.
thank you for letting me be on
I'm sure
this.
we'll be catching up again here in a couple days.
100%, brother.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Thank you.
All right, take it easy.
Love you, dog.